After writing 2 transformational books myself and supporting many other beings to do the same, I've become enthralled by the deep and mysterious magic that's activated when we choose to say yes to ourselves and commit to the book writing journey. Of course, we want to inspire change and new perspectives in our readers, but the transformation that happens as an author, both throughout the writing process and by actually releasing your book into the world, is surprisingly potent. I know I've been blindsided in the most disruptive and delicious ways by some of the changes my books have brought into my life. Writing a book is like casting a spell. Although we can never be completely sure what's going to be unleashed during the process, we choose to do it anyway. This Unbound one is a heroic journey. Each book has the potential to be a magical portal, a doorway to a new world, both for you and your reader. Each book has a very specific medicine that it's here to share with us. And each book gives us the opportunity to alchemize the magnificent imperfection of our experience into gold. The truth is that anyone can write a book. We could all get a few thousand words down and put them together. But what fascinates me is what happens when we allow the book writing process to go deeper. When we say, fuck it, get naked and dive way down beneath the surface. Letting go of the shoulds and any need to be acceptable, sensible, or approved of. What fascinates me is what happens when we make ourselves fully available to being transformed by the very act of writing a book. This is Unbound Writing, and this is the process we'll be exploring together here in the Unbound Writers Club. I'm Nicola Humber, author and founder of the Unbound Press, and I help magical beings to write the transformational book they're really here to write at this time. I'm your guide here in the Unbound Writers Club, and the aim of this podcast is to help you to feel supported, encouraged, activated as you embark on your book writing journey. Whether you're a first-time author or have many books out in the world, my hope is that you will find something here to inspire you. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Unbound Writers Club. Today I am joined by the awesome Ceryn Rowntree, author of The Divine Feminist, which is being featured in the Unbound Book Club this lunar month. If you don't know what the Unbound Book Club is, it's a free book club that we run here at the Unbound Press. You can sign up at theunboundpress.com/subscribe to get details of whichever book we are featuring in a particular month and read that with us. Today, like I said, I'm speaking with Ceryn. Her book, The Divine Feminist, came out towards the end of 2021, and actually it feels more current and important than it did even then, like in these times that we are continuing to live through. I'm going to read from the back cover of the book because Ceryn describes it perfectly. So here we go. Our world is out of balance. So far out of balance, we've almost forgotten there was ever an alternative. We know the age-old story of oppression of the goddess in favour of a patriarchal force and the ways that same story has played out over the centuries and generations to impact upon all of those who identify as women. But what if we were to step back from that story and look at the ways it plays out more broadly too, and how we and our planet are suffering as a result? Divine feminism invites us to look deeper at this inequality and consider the ways that all things considered feminine have been treated as less than over the centuries and generations. This book is your invitation to reconnect with those aspects within and for ourselves and the world, to find the sacred balance and flow that lies beyond the dualities society has inflicted upon us, and allow them to bring you not only back to yourself, but to a life that helps you remind the world there is another way. Oof. So, Divine Feminist, the book is that and so much more. So I'm really, really excited for you to hear what Ceryn has to say about the book and her relationship, her evolving relationship with this book, and how it's a journey that we all get to go on together. So let's dive in. So, Ceryn, welcome back to the Unbound Writers Club.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be here, Nicola.
Ah, really, really good to have you here. And I'm so excited that the Divine Feminist is going to be featured in the Unbound Book Club this lunar month. It feels like perfect timing. Oh my goodness, I so just want to dive into the conversation about the book, but I am going to just ask the question that I always ask at the beginning of these conversations. I know you've answered it before, but I feel like it's always interesting just to tune in, like to this particular moment in time, and ask, what does being an unbound writer mean to you?
Ooh, when you asked that question that time, the emotion that rose up when you said it was really strong, because what came up for me, and I'm probably not going to verbalize this very well, was it's about being given the space and being held to be free. Ooh, it does, because I think if I think about being unbound, there is a freedom there, a freedom that often isn't given to us when we are doing our work in the sense of something that can be quite formulaic. It can be quite, this is how this must be, like writing a book. But with Unbound, as an unbound author, as an unbound writer, there is the freedom to be able to write in the way that you need to write, to be able to write what you need to write, while also knowing that at every turn you are held and you are supported. And there's a really beautiful, powerful energy of that.
Oh, gorgeous. Oh, thank you. That's just really landed with me. Thank you so much, Ceryn.
And you, because it's all because of you.
Wow. Okay, I'm not going to deflect that. my immediate.
I will spend the whole episode of me going, no, it is.
I obviously, the Unbound Press and the Unbound writing community, like everything is co-created, but I'll let that land. Thank you so much. So the Divine Feminist, which we were just saying, I can't believe, like soon it's going to have been out in the world for a year. Yeah. Unbelievable, in November. I know, where has that time gone? But for those who don't know anything about you and this book, what is the Divine Feminist? What is the book about?
Well, the Divine Feminist I never quite know how to sum it up in a sentence. Mm-hmm. It is feminism but witchy. It is feminism but connected, and feminism but deeper. And I guess it is this book. I keep looking to the side because that's where the book is. Yeah. This book it's really a journey back to a place of alignment and a place of balance within ourselves and the world, in a world that has told us exactly what we should be and taken us away from what we are.
Yeah, I just love that description, feminist but witchy. Like, we should have had that on the
should have been the cover, shouldn't it? Yeah, damn.
Oh, perfect. So those people who are coming to the book for the first time, or maybe revisiting it as it's in the Unbound Book Club, tell us a bit more about the journey that you take the reader on in the book, Ceryn.
Yeah, so really, I like to think this book is a bit of a ritual in itself. We go through each one of the elements in turn. We call in each of the elements and work with them. And then as we do that, I talk about throughout the book, there are 13 keys, and it's the 13 keys back to a place of sacred balance, a place of alignment with ourselves. So it almost feels like, something just dropped in for me as I'm saying that. It's a bit like walking a labyrinth, I think. It's almost walking a sacred circle, walking a sacred spiral back to yourself is effectively what this is. So we move from a place of, let's look at what, we move right from, let's look at what this idea of balance even means. That's what this idea of feminist even means. Let's unpack this idea of the sun versus the moon, or the masculine versus the feminine. And we take it all the way through this whole host of things that we've been told we must be X instead of being Y. And along the way go, but what if we brought those two things together into a place of kind of symbiosis, into a place of I've forgotten what the word is, into a place of togetherness, until we get to a point of, we don't just have to be human or spiritual. Actually, we're divine in everything that we do. We are divine. it's our very nature is to be humanly, soulfully divine. And so we go right the way through that level of, I think, quite frankly, unpacking the bullshit that patriarchy has given us to come back to who we are, and to come back to not just who we are in ourselves, but also who we are in connection with the planet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I just love that. And before you even said the word labyrinth, I had that sense of that kind of journey through the book and what you're writing about. And it's interesting because we've got another book coming out at the beginning of October called Labyrinth. So there's obviously big labyrinth vibes going on at the moment. But I was just looking through the Divine Feminist, like before we hopped on to Zoom to record this, and just because I haven't read it since, like, you know, the original you sent across, the original manuscript. So it's always like such a treat for me to revisit these gorgeous books when they're in the book club. And what really struck me was, you know, it's so much more than a book. It really does feel like a journey, like a process. You are kind of guiding the reader through. And was that always your intention with it, Ceryn? No.
My goodness, no. When I started writing the book, and, you know, I mean, I've told this story on this podcast before, even, that when I started, this is a very different book to the one I intended to write. Mm. And I wrestled with it for literally years of going, no, I want to write my book this way. And I think I always intended for it to be quite, well, it went through many, many different iterations. There was a point where it was, this is my life story, and here's maybe what you can learn from it. There was a point where it was, let's talk about, this is almost my manifesto for how the world should be. You know, because we all think we know that. And then it turned into something that was really a guided journey. And I think in some ways, there's a part of me since then has regretted that, because I've had a number of people who've said to me, you know, in the last 3 months, I'm still working through your book, because it's not the kind of book you can just pick up, read in a week and put down. It's a journey. It's an experience. But I also really love it. I love the fact that, and I guess in a way, this goes back to what I said earlier. I love the fact that these people they're not just picking up a book and putting it down. They're being held through a whole process. And I think that's something that actually makes my heart sing a little bit when I think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested, like you said, mentioned there about kind of regretting it. I mean, what's that regret about?
Part of me would quite like to have written the book that people just pick up and read for 10 minutes before they go to bed. That seems quite nice. I was going to say maybe that'll be my next book. And as I did, a little voice went, no, it won't. You can't write those books. Don't be silly. Not what you do, Ceryn. Yeah, part of me I would like to be able to sit on this podcast and say to people, this is a really easy book to read. You take this on holiday with you and it can be a beach read. I mean, I'm aware we're reading this at the end of September, speaking this at the end of September, but you know, It can be a beach read. I mean, it can, but this is it's a big book. It's a powerful book. And it's not a soft and gentle one.
It's not. And also, though, I do want to say, like, even when I was just looking through it before we came on this call, it's not a difficult book to read.
No.
You know, there is a quality of ease, like the way you present it, the way you've structured the book, the way you write, it's very engaging. So it's not, I don't think of it as a dense book, and I wouldn't want anyone to think that at all.
Definitely. And I think there's lots. I have to be honest and say, this is probably not the done thing to say about your own book, but I bloody love this book. And I feel okay I feel kind of validated saying that, because I didn't write it by myself. I channeled a lot of it. It was very much a co-creative process, and I love it. And I'm so proud of it. And I say it's not an easy book to read, but it's also a book where I think you feel supported at every turn. Although you're doing the deep work, you're also being held to do the deep work. And I really love that, because I for the last few months, I've been, I talked about those 13 keys that are in the book, and every month on my podcast, I've been journeying with one of the keys. So every month I read another chapter back. And of course I've read them, I don't know how many times. And still there's points where I'll read the chapters and either go, God, that's insightful. I'll be like, oh, well done you, that's well written. Or there's other points that just make me laugh out loud. I can't remember what I read last month, but there was something that I giggled. And even talking about it afterwards on the podcast, I was still giggling. And I had I'm really fortunate that through the Unbound community, I've made lots of friends, but there is, as we were just talking about before, there is a wonderful author who lives about 15 minutes from me, the lovely Jen who wrote Wild Egg. And we've been for a couple of walks, and we've become friends through this process. And Jen messaged me the other week and said, I'm reading your book and I just feel like I'm sitting down having a cup of tea with you. And I love the fact that, because, books should, I'm a firm believer that books, especially the kind of books we write in the Unbound press, they should feel like you're having a cup of tea with someone. I talked about how being an Unbound writer means being held to be free, being supported to be free. I believe these books should support you through your own journey of unbinding in their own way. And so the fact that is how it feels to read this book, as though you're sitting down and having a cup of tea with me. I love that. Like, come and have it, buy the book, come and have a cup of tea with me. That'll be lovely.
Perfect. So perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Like, your voice just comes through so clearly in the book, which I love. And, that's definitely what we're all about here at the Unbound Press as well. And that's so interesting, the way you're going back to the book chapter by chapter. And I kind of feel, it sounds like this has maybe been your experience as well, Ceryn, like our books, even once they're out in the world, they still kind of evolve and shift in a way. And certainly the way we relate to them.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. It can kind of become like a different book at different times.
Yeah. And I think I worried with this one because by its very nature, by the fact that it involves so much feminism, it involves so much reflection on the state of the world. For a long time before we met, I worried about, I'm going to publish this and within a month it's going to be dated. Within a month, something will have moved along in the political dialogue and it'll be dated. And I guess there will be parts of it, we will read parts of it now where it reflects on something that will not be the case anymore. But it's fascinating me that the more I reflect back, the more I revisit the book, the more I'm finding that it evolves with the world. And I almost didn't expect that, but there's a real power to it that you read it now and you see other bits unlocking that maybe weren't there a year ago or 6 months ago even. It is coming more and more to the fore. And I remember when I wrote this thinking, oh, when I do the second edition, I'll put this in. When I do I just remember thinking I'm going to miss this. And now when I go back to it, I'm going, no, this is what it is. And this book will continue to evolve over time and over circumstance. And it doesn't need another perhaps it will one day, but it doesn't need another version of it because its evolution is in line with the world.
Completely. That's what I felt as well. When I picked it up, it's like, oh my goodness, this feels so current, and like kind of even more kind of current and like vital than it did when it came out like towards the end of last year, which was really interesting. And I think it's really helpful for people to hear that, particularly those who are writing a book or who've written books, because there can be this temptation to be in a never-ending process of like, oh, blood, just want to put this bit in, or this has happened, so I want to reflect this. So it's never complete. Yeah. And just trusting that the book is always what it needs to be, and like it still gets to evolve even once it's out in the world. I just think that's so powerful to
yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm working with a client at the moment who is writing a book, and she said to me the other week, but I have to put everything in there. And I was really challenging that. And after the session, I'd sat back and thought about it. And I thought, I remember as I was writing this thing, and everything has to go in there. And how do I choose in a whole, I'm writing about patriarchy. I'm literally writing about tens of thousands of years of history. How do I choose what should and shouldn't go in this book? Oh my goodness. And it's fascinating that actually, for me, this book, again, I'm looking at it. It's like I'm looking adoringly at it as I'm talking.
Mm-hmm.
This book has been the ultimate lesson in finding my voice. It's been the ultimate lesson in trusting my power of discernment to go, if this doesn't feel like it needs to go in, it can wait. It probably isn't important, because now I look at it and go, this is exactly how it was supposed to be. It's exactly the recipe of what the divine feminist was supposed to be. And it's that evolves, and it's that changes. And again, I'm not gonna discredit myself. I wrote it. I sat down with the pen in my hand and the paper and wrote it.
Yes, you did.
and also it wasn't just me, and I think that's part of this Unbound process as well, is the recognition that we're not doing this alone. We're the mouthpiece for something else, whether that be human experience, whether that be the divine, whether that be the earth. We're the mouthpiece for something else. And when we remember that, it takes the pressure off us to have to create something that is perfect.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then it is perfect.
Yeah.
When we're not trying to kind of grasp and make sure that it ends up being perfect. I mean, thinking about these specific times that we're living through right now, Ceryn, like, I don't know exactly what your experience has been with this year that we're in. I was going to say 2021. We're in 2022, obviously. I mean, this has
It
felt...
feels like 2 minutes ago that it was
Oh,
2021.
it does. And also, like, this year has felt intense in like all the ways. And maybe nothing like in particularly obvious. Obviously in 2020, like we were living through a pandemic and there was still, that happening in 2021. But I'm just curious to hear your reflections on like the divine feminist and why, like, at this particular time that we're living through, it can be a support.
There's, oh God, I could talk about this forever. I'll try and keep it short. I was walking the other day and I live near a place called Northumberlandia, which is a land sculpture of a woman. It's beautiful. I'll send you the picture, Nicola, afterwards. Maybe we can.
Gorgeous.
I'll make sure it's on my Instagram for people to look at when this goes live. And the words, it's sort of the landscape of a woman lying down. And I took a photograph of her the other night in the dark. And I don't know how I did it. It's the most beautiful photo I've ever taken. I've never taken anything like this. And as soon as I looked at the photo, I just got this, the feminine is waking. And I feel like for a long time now, the divine feminine has been stirring. And she's been stirring and she's been sort of coming to an awakening. And now the divine feminine has woken up. And that's amazing. And that's wonderful. And also, I'm reading a book at the moment, Maureen Murdoch's Heroine's Journey, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And she talks about the process that we go through when we awaken to our feminine. And we come back to a place eventually of the hieros gamos of the feminine and the masculine within us. And we've been on this process of awakening the feminine as a world, as individuals for so long. And we must get back to this place of unity. Because otherwise our world's just going to stay out of balance, but the other way. And I think part of that is about integrating the feminine in a deep way, in a powerful way. And part of that also is about not casting aside the true masculine. And something that came through very strongly for me yesterday, we're recording this the day after the Queen's funeral here in the UK. And something that came through for me very strongly was there is a potency in us moving out of an era where the kind of, and I have very mixed thoughts on the monarchy. So let me start by saying I'm not trying to drag anybody into that discussion, but there is a potency in us moving from a stage of having a female figurehead to a male one, because we need to rediscover what the masculine is. As a sacred, as the divine, that isn't what patriarchy tells us, that is true masculine. And the divine feminist, for me, I've said before, I struggled with the word feminist as part of this book for the longest time, because this isn't just something for those people who identify as women. It's about that balance of the yin and the yang within us. It's about that balance of the yin and the yang within the world, and of what the feminine and the masculine are outside of the crap that patriarchy has told us. And I think we're coming through a point now where the feminine has woken, the masculine is waking, and we need to understand what both of those things are, and we need to integrate them within our world, and we need to integrate them within ourselves. And for me, that's the heart of divine feminism, is accepting, recognizing, honoring, and integrating both of those things and everything around and in between them within us and within our world.
Wow. I just had all the chills when you were speaking then. And also, as we're recording this, it's coming up to the equinox as well. So, that theme of balance just feels like the perfect time for us to be having this conversation. Whew. So if somebody's coming to this book, to the Divine Feminist, during this lunar month,
yes,
and maybe they've read it before and they're revisiting it. From what you've said, that's probably not the case. They're probably still in the process of reading it and moving through it. Yeah. Or somebody's completely new. What kind of words of, I don't really like the word advice, but kind of encouragement, guidance would you give them as they journey with the book? What would be your message for them?
Trust yourself. Above everything else, above everything the world's told you, above everything I tell you in this book as well. Trust yourself, because that's what this book is about. It's about coming back to coming back to, I'm going to use the cliche, who you were before the world told you otherwise. It's about coming back to who all of us were before history told us otherwise. And I think trust yourself. Remember that you know so much more than you've ever given yourself credit for, that you are so much more than you've ever given yourself credit for. And let the little light, even if it's a teeny, tiny little speck of light of that belief and that knowing, lead you through this book and then onwards through whatever comes after it.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, amazing. Ceryn, I am so grateful to you for writing The Divine Feminist, for being part of the Unbound family. It's always such a joy. I always feel so activated whenever I speak to you. So thank you so much for being in the Unbound Writers Club today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for this space, and for, by which I mean the podcast and by which I mean Unbound, but also thank you so much for holding this book, because she's a book that a lot of other people would have been frightened by because she's fiery. And you have never been, you have always been her greatest champion. And I'm incredibly grateful for that.
Oh, well, she is a feisty one, but we like a feisty one here at the Unbound Writers. Yep. Before we go, actually, I just want to make sure people know how to connect with you, Ceryn. If they want to find out more about you and your work, what's the best way for them to do that?
So the best way is probably Instagram, which is where I'm at Ceryn Rowntree, and it's a funny one to spell, so make sure you check the show notes to figure out how to spell that one. Or my website is just cerynrowntree.com. It's all just my name, because there's nobody else out there with my name. So basically, if you type my name into Google, you'll find me. That's the way to go.
No one else is coming up, so I love it.
Nope. Someone asked me the other week whether I'd written my book under a pseudonym, because it's a very witchy name. It can't really be your name. I was like, no, this is my name. It really is.
Fantastic. Oh, thanks so much, Ceryn. Really enjoyed speaking with you today. Thanks.